Oh, you can see it. Okay, great. So my name's Andrew Lundy. I'm in the U.S. In Atlanta, Georgia, the home of the TabConf. So if any of you have been to TabConf or are planning to go to TabConf, that's right in my backyard, which is great. The thing I want to talk today about is Spaces Protocol, and what is Spaces Protocol and how does it work, and we'll get into a little bit of the details, but and I'll tell you a little bit where the progress is with the project. So this project, I kind of came into it through the Ethereum backdoor, right? So a few years back, I was muddling around in Ethereum because I thought that's where all the programmatic action was. I mean, Bitcoin in terms of a development platform was a bit behind, a little more rudimentary, and all the excitement seemed to be in terms of development and extending the blockchain, and the various crypto scenario projects were over there. And there was a project called Unstoppable Domains. So if you're familiar with Unstoppable Domains, it allows you to basically purchase a special domain name like DNS. That isn't an official domain name, but then if you configure things right, you pay for it once, it's yours forever, and then you can associate like websites with it, etc., and host things through the interplanetary file system, IPFS. If you're familiar with that, then that project aligns with very long-term storage and very distributed storage. So what do you get at the end of the day? You get something that is basically unstoppable, basically uncensorable, it's supposedly can't be taken away from you. But then the more you study the protocols and the consensus mechanism with the Ethereum stuff, you realize, well, these projects are all, there's susceptibilities in terms of the leadership of the projects and the fact that they all are proof of stake based. And the more I looked at it, the more I was like, yeah, this is great, but I really want it on Bitcoin. I don't want it on Ethereum or some side chain or something else out there. And so I waited and kind of kept an eye out for, is there any effort that's even like this? And when I came across this Spaces protocol about a year and a half ago, I said, oh, I think finally this is it. So you see my screen here, Spaces Protocol, and I'm not part of the original development team. I'm just kind of a number one fan, and have been trying to help out test and build some kind of tools and get set up for myself as well. But effectively, I feel that this is probably the best chance at having a namespace rooted in Bitcoin that effectively, I think you can say, replaces DNS, but at the end of the day, DNS often, most of the time, works fine for everyone. But when you get into situations like protests, we saw this with the Arab Spring uprising. We've seen situations in Catalan, Spain, where they've turned off whole DNS top-level domains in order to suppress dissent amongst the population. And at the end of the day, even if you go to GoDaddy or whoever your identity provider is or your domain provider, you're renting that name. You have to pay every year. You have to, make sure that your records are set up straight. And as we've seen recently in there's the Cloudflare down, there was an AOS outage a couple weeks ago that had DNS implications. Cloudflare, while I think it was largely unrelated to DNS, it was still, there's times when DNS goes down, and for most folks, that means everything is offline and unavailable. So Spaces Protocol is as it says here, it's anchored in Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's on the most secure network. And I think it's done in a way that really makes a lot of sense. So you might say, oh, there's been other things out there that have come before, and you'd be right. There was this thing called Handbrake. There was a couple other early Bitcoin domain or name system efforts that just, for whatever reasons, just they didn't really do and fit the bill. And I think this one's a good one. So this site, spacesexplorer.com or org, sorry. And I'll get it in the chat here so you can follow along if you want. Is the main website. And if you look into it, so there's basically two parts to the Spaces protocol. The first part is an auction process where if you're interested in a top level name, and these names are all separated by, I'm going to go into the docs here, separated by an @ sign. So they look something like this, Alice at Bitcoin. And, you know, when everything's working, then that resolves through the resolution mechanism to something else. Now, it doesn't have to be an npub. This is a, you know, a Nostr public key, but it can be anything. It can be other things. It can be multiple things. So don't get stuck on one thing here. But it's, you know, there's a set of rules, and I can get into those a little bit if there's questions about them. But suffice it to say that there's certain ways that the auctions that handle these top levels. So in this case, the @ Bitcoin part, there's an auction process, and the auction process allows you to open an auction on a name that you might be interested in if it's available, and you do all of this on top of Bitcoin. So you're using Bitcoin to bid for these top level spaces, and what happens is every day 10 of the spaces get into it. Get released into the auction process. This is just setting up. Let me see if it gets the auction component of the, yeah, because this is where most people are interested at the start. So you get into this thing where you place an auction, the 10 highest names that get released in the auction section. So in the auction section, you have 10 days of active auctioning, where anybody can see that there's an auction going on, and whoever outbids someone on a particular name, then whoever that they outbid, whatever their prior bid was, gets returned to them. So if you bid on something, get outbid. What's that? Yeah, these are, yeah, you do have to pay transaction fees. So this is all on chain, all base layer, right? So the 10 are selected by the highest initial opening bid. So if you want your name, and they suggest due to the you know, dust limits and stuff, that you open a bid nothing less than about 1,000 sats, so $1 effectively right now, and that way an initial bid. But if you say, for instance, expect that there's a bunch of people trying to get their names into the auction process, you might say put 2,000. And that way you're kind of at the front of the line to be let in on the next day's 10 available names going into the auction process. Yes, it's all on chain. So assuming you go through 10 days worth of bidding and get outbid and rebid, at some point, if there's contention and a couple people, or more than a couple, are very interested in that name, then on the 10th day, if there's any outbidding activity, it kicks out the extension for another day. So there's no last minute sniping that you can come in and overbid someone at the last minute. Every time after the 10 days, someone overbids again, it extends the auction for another day. So as long as there's interest in the auction, the bidding will be bid up to a point where whoever really wants to spend that much Bitcoin for that name will get it. We'll get that name. And also another important point is that all of the funds, all the proceeds from this auction process are all sent to a burn address. So there is no party that's receiving these addresses, receiving these funds from all the auction activity. And I'll show you in a second how much has been burned. But that's always a big question, because people are like, well, you know, the founders are going to be scooping up all the proceeds from this auction process, and that is not the case. So assuming you proceed to the winning bid and you get the name, you can claim it you have like, as long as you are winning, you can claim it. Now, even if it's in this claim phase and someone else, and before you've had a chance to claim it, if somebody else comes in and says, oh, well, that's really cool, I want that name, I'm going to outbid it, it can still be outbid at this point, and it stays in the auction phase, So if everything goes well, you get your name, you're all good, you've registered it, and you just sit on it forever, right? You say, like, this is, let's just say Coca-Cola or something. Like, I'm going to resell this name, and there is an aftermarket already built. I'm going to resell this name to Coca-Cola when they finally wake up and decide that this is going to be like the thing to have. If you just sit on it for a year and do nothing with it, and I mean nothing, just like squat on it, it actually will expire, and it will be re-released into a mode where it can be brought back into the auction process again. So this feature of it is intended to allow, basically discourage people scooping up a lot of high value names and just sitting on them and not doing anything. Now, if you're aware of this and are kind of paying attention, then all it takes is a simple transaction fee renewal thing, and you're back to resetting the clock for 365 days before it expires again. So at the top level name perspective, there is at the very minimum a one transaction fee per year sort of, I guess, cost to holding it at the top level.
Is the renewal cost?
Say again.
What's the renewal cost? Do you need to just post the transaction, or do you need to pay?
Yeah, the cost of the transaction. Yes.
Just this, right? You don't need to
just the transaction. So I mean, it's possible that transactions might be like very high that day or something. But the point is that you need to express interest in that name. You can't just camp out on it and like never use it. Or for instance, you get hit by a bus, or you forget to put it in your estate planning or whatever. If it never expired, then it would be forever held up and, maybe never put to good use. So I think there's some good rationality for why this is. So just want to be considerate with time. How much do I got? Like 10 minutes? Okay. All right. So anyway, that's kind of the auction process. And again, it's all on chain. This goes into all the details. Let me go into the Explorer. So that helps. So if you go to the Explorer, this is kind of a web interface for all the activity that's in process. And this has been on the main net for about a year now. So there's had a good bit. So anyway, to date, 3,365 spaces have been registered. Various bidding events, about almost 40,000. So at this point, over 1.5 Bitcoin have been burned through this auction process. So that's not insignificant, funds. So currently we'll see in auction. So these are the names that are currently in the 10-day auction process. Before I get into this a little bit, there's this upcoming auctions button. So at this point, there's not a whole lot of activity, and there's no new names coming into the auction process. So there's actually nothing of those waiting in the queue, effectively. Kind of think of it like the mempool for names coming in. So and then let's go back to current ones. So currently you can get at C3 or in Vendetta, Fox. I guess Guy Fawkes Day was not long ago, so that must have been somebody was thinking that might be good. But here's a few others, and then in this case we have I don't know, about 10 or 12 here. So and these puny codes are also legal names. So this one is a couple kanji characters. So let's go past. Before I do this, you have a filter. You can filter this by the number of bids, who's bid, how many bids have been placed on that name, what's the highest bid, what's the lowest bid. So a little bit of flexibility, how much time till the auction is over. So so these are in can be claimed mode, and these other ones here are waiting for the block height that gets you past that 10-day point. So they're all waiting here. So these will like come up. And then for existing auctions, so we're gonna let me do the bid value. So and sort it top to bottom. So Bitcoin, actually, there, if you go to the website at bitcoin.com, you can actually pay some money and reserve a subname at Bitcoin, because this one's already been secured. So it was, the highest bid was 0.1 BTC. And then we can see here that some others, a lot of single letter names. I guess these are people that are, oh sure. So actually it was the founder got into the auction, and just like any other auction participant, and found and wanted this at Bitcoin name, because obviously there's a lot of synergy with Bitcoin. And in anticipation of being able to create subnames, and I'll talk about those in a second, that he set up this site that allows you to go and basically reserve a name. So you can get, Lynn at Bitcoin, Dennis, whatever. So what they're doing is just doing a wait list, because the subname part, everything to the left of the @ symbol, is actually for the most part stored off chain, and is managed through zero knowledge proof to say whether something's valid or not. And I may not have time to get into all the intricacies of that. And that's the part that is just is on the brink of being launched into mainnet any day now. We're just doing some testing right now to make sure that it's working properly. So this was kind of a special case, this at Bitcoin one. They wanted to kind of generate some interest and give people an opportunity to kind of reserve their name. So yeah, if you want Andrew at Bitcoin, you'll say, sorry, it's already been registered by somebody. So, and unfortunately, you're out of luck. You cannot have Andrew at Bitcoin. Somebody else already has it. So I'm trying to be considerate of time. Let's talk a little bit about, let me go back to the docs a little bit here. And so if you're very interested in this, just look at the docs. It's pretty well laid out here. But once an auction has been completed, then you need to get into the how you resolve that name. So a lot of this hasn't been completely fleshed out, but once it's all working, you should be able to do things like send money, real Satoshis, to just a name, right? So instead of having to like scan a QR code to send somebody your public address, you should be able to say, hey, I'm just send some sats to Tomek at Bitcoin, and it'll get there. So that's kind of the lowest hanging fruit use case. But you can do other things like sign Nostr events with your handle, with your name, things like that. Let me go back. And now for the name resolution, there is what you do is you take and you create what looks like a DNS record called a zone file that looks like we use the same format. And then you can sign it with your name, and then you can publish it to a distributed hypertext network, DHT. And this is similar to how BitTorrent works, but it's a different set of network with different timeouts and properties. But effectively, the resolution mechanism will query these nodes running this Fabric DHT protocol, which will then answer the questions like, well, what's Tomek's hub key? What's his address for Bitcoin, etc. So that's another main thing. You can publish these records, and then they will expire after 2 days. But you can then you can also just with a simple cron job just republish them and keep them lively. This is exactly how the BitTorrent system works. So anyway, I'll get in it. I'll just see if there's anything else. I think that's a lot. I would love to talk about the resolution mechanism. I've been working on a modified DNS proxy server that understands names. I've been looking at different things for how to get a browser to resolve the names and build special clients like Nostr clients that understand this. Because, at the end of the day, things like Nostr, when you go and list your relays, you're using DNS. So if somebody can interfere with your DNS, they can also interfere with your Nostr clients and the ability to get to your relays. So I think for today, I'm just going to stop here and take some questions. And there's the zero knowledge proof side of it, again, is coming such that with a subname like Tomek at Bitcoin, you would be able to get a proof and a certificate that validates that you have that name. And one important point, once a subname has been issued, so let's just say, what is it? So available. So once this has been issued to you, there's a process of taking that and creating a UTXO that represents that subname. Okay. So once that's been created by what we call the space operator, and if you're interested in operating these top level spaces, please reach out to me for that, because I've been doing a lot of work on that as well. But once you've gotten a UTXO that's bound to this name, then forever that is your name. It can never be taken away, and you never have to pay any sort of renewal fee. That one transaction fee per top level name only applies to top level names. So once Tomek at Bitcoin is taken and has been issued to and bound to a UTXO, then you can do on-chain things from that point forward. You don't even need to mess with the DHT network. You don't need to mess with the top level operator, whoever's managing that top level name. It is completely your sovereign property. And I think that's where the biggest compelling sort of feature of this is. And with that, I think it's good place to stop. And if there's any questions, happy to field them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is something that's kind of, one thing I did want to mention is the marketplace. So that's kind of an interesting situation, and we've been working through like actually how would you manage that. And that is, so say you own one of these top level names and you then create a bunch of subnames out under it, but then decide later on you want to resell it to someone else. You're tired of dealing with it. You just want to maybe you've built up a big following under, at Vision or something like that, and you want to sell it to someone else. Well, that comes with all those subspace names that you've created. Those will still be not available. It's not like when you sell the top name to somebody else that it clears all those things and starts over. No, those still all exist and will never disappear. So you're really, if you've actually created a bunch of subnames under a top level name, you're actually selling that whole community. And there's opportunities to stay engaged, and you can decide, it's up to you to decide how you want to manage your community. The idea was to give you the ability to maybe do it as a private club, maybe do it as a public offering, maybe not do anything at all. I mean, it's all entirely up to you. But the only thing that you have ongoing cost is if you don't do any action whatsoever. And by the way, any action at the top level also resets that 365-day clock. So if you're using it in any way, then you can keep it in your possession. And I can imagine there being a service to operators where they're like, just make sure that it gets renewed once a year. All I want to do is wait for this, for this top level name to become valuable or something. So this where I'm at now is the Spaces market, and you can actually, again, it's a transaction on the Bitcoin. You can offer your existing names to resellers. So you can say, oh, you want Nakamoto? It's going to cost you 21 Bitcoin, or I don't know, somebody put a big price on that one. So these are, high value names that people feel were worth acquiring and reselling. So this is the aftermarket area for the Spaces protocol. And there's things definitely to be worked out yet, but I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great way for Bitcoiners to express their sovereignty. So should I take questions? Oh my gosh. I haven't been looking at the all the stuff. Anyone want to come on and just ask me one?
Well, I have this follow-up to the last one. I still don't get what privileges or admin rights have the top level owner of a space. Can he like gatekeep people? Can he censor them? Is he the one reselling the subspaces? Or
yes, he's
what
the one.
benefits he has? Because
yeah,
I was confused at the end.
The space operator, the person owning the space, and you can own a space and delegate it to someone else if you don't want to manage the operation of it. But I could go through maybe on another call what the whole proof generation thing. How do you create a new subname? How the proof gets generated? The proof themselves, the proof tree, the hash of it gets also put on chain. So when you do a validation between a subspace and to see, does this subspace exist? Has a certificate been issued for it? Is it valid? Then you go through, you take the proof certificate with the proof in it and the name, and then you go and you look for its inclusion in the root proof of that top level name. And if you find that it's in there and that the root hash of that proof has been put on the Bitcoin blockchain, then it's completely known that that's a valid and taken name. So let's see. How does Bitlik says, how does the resolve phase look like? Meaning, how do you use these namespaces for replacement for DNS at the operating system level? So yeah, that's I mentioned I was working on a DNS proxy server that understands that. I was going to try to demo that, but I didn't have my ducks in a row. But effectively, you can make a DNS server understand what the space's name resolution is. So the way I'm going about it is like, if you see a space's name format come in, look for it and use the space's resolution. And if it doesn't, then fall back to the normal DNS. Just presume it's a normal host name. And that way you can set up a special DNS proxy like within your LAN and then tell all your machines to use it as the first resolution point, and then you would get it. Now, the dilemma that I found with that is that web browsers don't like the @ sign. So, if you say hello at Bitcoin, the problem is it doesn't understand this as a host name. So it defaults to making it a search, right? And I actually built a little search proxy engine that would then, when it sent it to the search, it would do the spaces resolution and then work it out if it could, but if it couldn't, then pass it back to the normal built-in search. But I found that that's kind of a cumbersome thing to expect people to set up. I also envision that we'll probably have a browser that's especially designed for this. I've actually was hacking at a simple Java Node.js browser, trying to get it to work, and I could kind of get it to work, but there's a lot of places where the host name is handled. It gets in the headers and stuff. And so it's more of a challenge than I thought it was going to be. But anyway, hopefully, and I can imagine like special relays for Nostr and clients for Nostr to understand this stuff. And I fully expect to have something like npub at some point, like a spaces based like validation in Nostr, like check, where you could say, not only is it like npub valid, it's like spaces valid, as kind of an additional validity check. So let's see. Any other questions? Admin rights. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling through it. So to sell the space, I just have to send the UTXO to someone else, right? That is true. Now you have to form a transfer transaction that follows some rules such that the space itself is maintained through the transaction, and that's the inner protocol detail. But it's totally possible, and that's going to be a supported thing. If you're interested in looking at bidding, there you can either set it up on the command line, or if you are not comfortable with doing like Docker containers and setting up your own server, and it needs access to a Bitcoin node, you can download this Akron wallet. And this is like Windows and Mac and I think Linux. And it allows you to do all the bidding function, and you can see what spaces, and you can put your space on the aftermarket, etc. You can sign Nostr things. So this wallet was designed to make it a little easier to manage space auction process and managing it after the fact. So there's some things that we're going to be adding to this as well. But if you're interested, or just how it works, download this, either sync it to your own node. There's a way to sync it to a public node. If you want to, you can, fund it with a little money and a little Bitcoin and start your own auction, all within this nice user interface. So otherwise it's kind of a command line thing. Did I make this? No. Now I actually have, there's a mobile wallet for creating these requests for what do you call a handle, a subspace. And I've been modifying this, but I also built something, let's see, spaces, a little tool for composing and like embedding. So when you do take your handle online, you can actually embed a certain amount of hex data in an op return and store extra data. And I created this tool to kind of make it easy to do things like, oh, well, let me add my Nostr pub key. Let me do some other things. And since you need to kind of create this little hex string to pass to the function, I was trying to make it an easy way to do that, So anyway, I've also been testing out and also contributing some push pull requests to the repos, the main repos. And we actually presented this at TabConf last October here. And I could try to find that video if anyone's interested in watching that. So I don't want to suck up all the time, but and I'm sure all my US friends are all eating turkey about now. Jean Paul says, have you heard of bonds or using Bitcoin unstoppable DNS domains? I have not. I will look into that for sure. All right. Yeah, I mean, there are other things, and someone can say, well, I can just take a copy of that and do it again. It's like, yeah, but kind of like Bitcoin, you would, it's kind of the network effect. So we're we're right at the point where we want to start evangelizing and getting the word out and getting more people interested in this. So recently, I will definitely check out bonds. You're welcome.